Welcome. Come in, come in, come in, and sit. Welcome to the East Coast Invitational. It is 2018. This is, I don't know how many years we've been doing this. Over 30 now. Yeah, it's been a long time. If you've ever been to a junior Bible quizzing extravaganza, this was the very first one. JBQ extravaganzas started from this tournament years and years ago. My quizzing years back in the dark ages. In the olden times with horse and buggy. So welcome. I want to start with a roll call and go through the teams that are here in attendance. I'm going to go through by division, and we're going to start with the beginner division. So we have a beginner team from Colonial Heights, Virginia here. All right, they are here. Newark, Delaware, beginner, here. Nova, beginner, here. Mount Vernon, New York, beginner. There we are. And Havre de Grace, beginner. Maybe? All right, I'll have to see if Jen is on her way. Moving on to the junior teams. I have two teams from Newark, Delaware. Two junior teams from Newark, Delaware. In attendance, East Hartford, Connecticut. There he is. All right. We have Zanesville, Ohio. Here we are. Colonial Heights, Virginia, and juniors. Lancaster, PA. I see you guys there in the back. Yorktown Heights, New York. Over to my left. Wilmington, Delaware, Junior. Hi, Raina. Pennsville, New Jersey, Junior. All right. Boston, Massachusetts, Junior. Hello. Mount Vernon, New York, in juniors. Also here. And Havre de Grace, have they made it yet? I will need to find out where they are. Moving on to the intermediate division, we have Arnold, Maryland. There we go. Looks like Virginia over there for a second. Colonial Heights, Virginia in the intermediate division. All right. Newark, Delaware in the intermediate division is here. Wilmington, Delaware, I have two teams in the intermediate division. Are they both here? All right. Chesapeake, Virginia in the intermediate division is here. Pennsville, New Jersey, intermediate is here. Zanesville, Ohio, intermediate is here. Mount Vernon, New York, intermediate also here. And Havre de Grace, I'm going to have to reach out to Jen. They're not too far away. You can race up 95. And finally, the experienced division. I have Colonial Heights, Virginia. Experienced is here. Over to my left. Lancaster, PA, in experienced is here. Lynchburg, Virginia, inexperienced. Chesapeake, Virginia, inexperienced. Newark, Delaware, experienced. Thank you. East Hartford, Connecticut, experienced. Here. Zanesville, Ohio, experienced. Also here. Wilmington, Delaware, experienced. You are present. Baltimore, Maryland, experienced. There's Mark. And finally, last but not least, Pennsville, New Jersey, experienced. Should have led with that. All right. We've got our roll call. So we do have 4. Is anyone, did I miss anyone? Did anyone show up and I didn't get you? Where? Okay. All right. So we've got everyone. We didn't miss anyone. We have all 4 divisions competing. Experienced will be here in this building. Intermediates will be in our fellowship hall just across the parking lot. And the juniors will be next door at Church of Christ. Make a right out of here and an immediate right, not into the driveway, into the church. And I will talk to you again about that in a moment. We are honored and privileged to have some very excellent former quizzers who are going to be our officials. Our junior and beginner quizmaster is in the very back, Josh Edwards. Let me give him a hand. Our intermediate division quizmaster will be newly minted former quizzer Vincent Beardsley, who is on his way down. He's in deep discussion with Brother Faubert. I think they're still going over a contest from last year. And finally, as I mentioned, we are honored to have Brother Faubert with us here. So he will be the quizmaster here in this session. Just a quick schedule. We will have, Brother Faubert will be giving a seminar in just a minute, and then I will hand out the matrices, and we'll split immediately and start quizzing right after that. And I'll be up here for that. Tomorrow morning, we will go to the end of round one tonight. Tomorrow morning, we will start at 9 a.m., go straight to your split sessions, experience here, intermediate, in the Fellowship Hall, juniors and beginners in the Church of Christ. At 9 a.m., we will start then. And we will go into completion. We will finish with trophies in each division, so we're not hanging up everyone because one division might take longer than the other. So we'll do the trophies right as soon as possible. I do want to introduce the pastor of our church, who's going to go over a few house rules. Pastor Stephen Beardsley.
Well, first of all, welcome to everyone. We're very excited and honored to be a part of the team that has, over the years, been involved with this tournament. It's had many different names and a few key sponsors. And for a few years back, we revived the tournament. It was dormant for a few years. We revived it, and now we're very happy that it's not even just our tournament. If you've seen Newark UPC Invitational, sorry, those are old. This is the East Coast Invitational, and so it's ours. It's the East Coast. We just happen to be the current location where we're hosting it. But welcome to everyone. We're glad, very, very glad that you're here. And I do not have a whole lot of rules. I'm very much with Paul. I believe that grace is in order. And so if you can work and live gracefully, then we'll have less trouble. So a few pointers with regard to that. Gum is really hard to get out of the carpet, so mints are preferable. My mother is notorious for saying, "I don't chew it, I just suck on it." To which I say, "Get the gum out of your mouth, Mom." So if you can avoid gum, that would be really, really helpful. Drinks that have color to them make it harder to clean up. This is not, and if your pastor teaches you otherwise, then show respect to that. I have no problem. It's by custom. But here, this is not a sacred place. God is everywhere. He's in us. You are a sacred place. He doesn't dwell in temples made with hands. But this is a place that we live. So when you all leave tomorrow afternoon and head to your homes, we'll have church the next day here. So the things that will help with that is I don't have a problem with food and drink and so forth, but if you can clean up after yourself, and probably the best thing just for ease in that, because things get knocked over, is if you, any of the colored drinks, if you will, the drinks that will bring stain. Water doesn't seem to do that. Those, if you can keep those out in the vestibule or over in the other buildings, that would be much appreciated. And Bible quizzing is very, very important to this church. In the life of this church, it began with me as a 12-year-old. I'm now 45. So we've been at this for a few years. We've had years that we did not succeed at all, and we still quizzed. We've also had years where we have succeeded spectacularly, and we've come back to quiz the next year with the same principles that we quizzed when we did not quiz well at all. So whether you are a team that's here that's preparing for a great year. Your eye is on one of those bigger trophies rather than one of those smaller trophies. That's kind of the juxtaposition of those is kind of sad. I should have moved those, but anyway, I didn't think ahead on that. Quiz not based upon a year. Quiz based upon a career. And quizzers, though you can't see it, coaches, you should see it. That Bible quizzing is more than even just the 7 years of seniors or the 5 or 6 years of juniors. Because without coaches, there is no quizzing. Without quizzers, there is no quizzing. But without coaches, there is no quizzing. And I'm glad to see many quizzers who I have coached against, who I did not like when we quizzed them. And I'm glad to see them in the audience now. And I know that I don't have to coach against them. They're not quizzing. Now I get to coach against you. Fear the beard. No, I'm teasing. You know I have fun. We are here to have a great time. And if there's anything we can do to help you, just find somebody. There's a few of us walking around here telling you, as if you didn't already know, we are Newark. Obviously, you can ask us, but there's others as well. Ben, of course, will be rotating around. Anything we can do, we're glad you're here. Welcome to Newark.
All right, and Wilmington Apostolic will be providing some food in the various locations. Sister Alice, would you like to come and share about that?
Thank you. All right, hello everyone. For your convenience, we have provided loads of snacks of variety of whatever your taste may be. I'm sure we have something that can accommodate your needs. I know that when you're quizzing, you need lots of energy. And in lieu of our house rules, we don't want to break any of those with colored drinks, but we do have them. So if we could contain all of those things to outside of the room, that'd be great. But we have hot food tomorrow. So you can, you'll have your choice of, I think it's hot dogs or chicken. So please come out and support us. It's for quizzing. It's for quizzers so that they can continue to go farther, just like you're here today. So we appreciate the support. We also have coffee if you need, a buzz or something like that. I'm sure you won't like that, but it's available over in the fellowship hall. So thank you so much. Any questions, you can always grab. And one of us from Wilmington, I'm sure you'll know who we are.
All right. Thanks, Sister Alice. And as I say every year, bringing Brother Faubert here, we would be remiss not to hear from him. And in previous years, we focused on some fundamentals and some specifics. And this year, we chatted, and we want to change it up and focus on one particular area. So if you would welcome Brother Faubert, he is our North American Bible Quiz Director.
Thank you, Brother Ben, and thank you, Brother Beardsley, and the other sponsoring churches for hosting this tournament. It's going to take me a while to get used to East Coast Invitational, but it's I trust the name will cast a wider net. And it is great to be back in Newark. I am stoked to be with you. I was in a meeting just before this. We were talking Bible quiz questions and question writing and stuff. So that's something that just stokes the fires for me. We are going to get into some quizzing here shortly, but in talking with Brother Ben, we have had a couple of years ago, I think we talked about memorization, some of the nuts and bolts, and last year was about question writing and sort of sharing my process and my preparation. And Brother Ben suggested contesting. So we're going to take a few minutes here to talk about contesting. And one of the things that I do get asked fairly often is, how do I get a contest granted? And my answer is I try to be kind and not sarcastic, but just bring me something worth granting, and I will. So, I did want to talk a little bit about that, and I will be referring to a resource. And I tried to dump some thoughts into this when it was released close to a couple years ago. But for those who don't have it or have it but haven't read it, we will refer to it and expand upon it. But before we get into that, let me just say that Bible quizzing is a way of life. Really, quizzing is a lifestyle, right? Parents, coaches, you know what I mean when I say that, right? Quizzers, quizzing is a lifestyle, right? Just like serving God, it's not something that you can do well part-time, right? You sell out or you don't, right? So part of Bible quizzing is contesting. That's part of it, and that's part of some people's quiz game more than others. I understand. There's some that they don't get on their feet very often at all. For me, it was as often as I possibly could, right? It was contesting. But I say that to say that as quizzing is a lifestyle and as contesting is part of that, it really is about deconstructing the questions as they're asked, right? Can I look critically at a question or an answer, break it down, and does it stand up to that test? Because just like the Bereans in Acts chapter 17, they were more noble than those in Thessalonica in that they received the word with all readiness of mind and searched the scriptures daily, whether those things were so. That they just didn't take it at face value. They just weren't spoon-fed, but they took it, chewed it, worked it over, digested it. And the next verse, which we don't often quote, right, is therefore, because they did that, there were many who believed, because that was their approach. And so I thank God for every pastor who stands in the pulpit and delivers the word of God. But we should always take things and run them through the principles, the Word of God. Does that make sense? Because the end result of having done that is that you're going to believe even more. And through you, more people are going to believe. All right? So, as Bible quizzing is a way of life and contesting is part of Bible quizzing, don't just take things at face value alone. As I said, I don't leave here and say, well, brother Faubert is telling me I don't have to listen to my pastor or whatever. No, that's not what I'm saying. But if you want to live this truth for yourself, you can't do it for your pastor or your parents, your quiz coach, anyone else. You have got to adopt this for yourself, right? And part of that. And so, contesting is a way to do that and a way to train ourselves to do that. So, let me refer quickly to a couple pages here because we refer to contesting in this. This is a resource, a free resource directed at coaches, but quizzers, you're certainly free to pick it up and read it as well. It's available for download in a PDF format. I've simply downloaded it and printed it off into this booklet format. Building a Successful Bible Quiz Ministry. This is the rewrite and re-release of the leadership handbook that Brother Marvin Walker wrote so very many years ago, and we've kept as much of his content in here as we felt was applicable to 2016 when it was released. I think he had written it close to 40 years earlier, so some things had changed. And I was pleased to not only carry the torch forward with Brother Walker, but I partnered with Brother Ben Cohen as well and to produce this resource. So on page 26, in this chapter we're talking about practice. Contesting is something that you should practice. Right? So in your weekly quiz practice contesting, especially for junior quizzers. All right, I understand we've got a mixed multitude here, juniors and seniors. Coaches of junior teams, you better practice, because if all three of your junior quizzers jump up at the same time, they need to know what to do. right, in that instance, and not just sort of stand there after the quizmaster acknowledges them, right? They need to know what the correct procedure. And I'm not going to get into the procedure itself. This is not a rules manual. Those procedures are in the manual. So practice it in your weekly practice. As a quiz coach myself, there were some times I knew that the question, or I'm sorry, that the answer the other quizzer gave was incorrect. But I called it correct to see if the other quizzers were, one, listening, and two, could contest properly and explain their contest. Not only on answers, sometimes there was a question. I would sort of scan the question. I'm thinking, all right, this is not valid, but I will read it anyway because it's practice. And I'll read it. It'll be asked. It'll be answered. But before moving on to the next question, I'm like, all right, somebody should be on their feet here. What's wrong with this question? And sort of press them, right, to deconstruct. Don't just take it at face value. Right? And maybe it comes naturally to me because I'm just a natural skeptic or something. I don't know. But coaches, I would do that in practice. And so it's something that was repeated, and quizzers got more comfortable standing up, contesting, right? Being able to identify what might be wrong with a question. Okay? So we also practice, as we share here on page 26, the structure of a contest. Now, I don't know why quizzers are nervous when they come down to the judges' table, but sometimes I think we should have oxygen here for them. Because there's some that are just ready, they're hyperventilating almost. I'm like, it's okay. We're not going to beat you or anything. I mean, I'm not a big, intimidating guy, am I? I'm not, me, I don't think so, but maybe others do. Anyway, but they're nervous, right? They're nervous when they come down. If you've practiced a structure and repeated that again, they will fall back on that structure and be able to communicate that contest more clearly and effectively to the judges, okay? So, and this is the format that we've used, and if you've got something different in your team, that's fine as well. It would be, our contest is, right? Now it depends on whether you're contesting the question or you're contesting the answer, and let me just quickly say that that's the only thing you can do in a contest. A contest is not a point of order, all right? If a point of order or something about a procedural violation or something you have requesting is brought to the judge's table, we will deny it every time. Even if it has merit, we may address it after the fact, but the contest will still be denied because that's not a contestable issue. You can contest the content of a question or the content of an answer. That's it. Okay? So, our contest is, this is what the question was, or if you're contesting the answer, this is what the answer was. The verse says this, and 4 times out of 5, maybe even a little higher, 9 times out of 10, that's where quizzers, even coaches, sometimes stop. Right there. All right? The question was this, the verse says this. And I'm looking at them, as wide-eyed as I can, trying to and they'll say, okay, thank you, and then walk away. Like, that's not a complete contest, okay? Because you say, this is why the question is invalid, or this is why my quizzer's answer should be correct, or this is why the other quizzer's answer should be wrong. The why is the whole crux of the contest. All right? At a tournament recently, we had deliberated. It wasn't for 10 minutes, all right? But it was a longer than usual deliberation because there was just some key points and the quizzer hadn't answered quite as cleanly and discreetly as was on my page. So anyway, we went and ruled, and they contested. The coach brought it down and just said, we feel like it's the same thing. And I was waiting, and he turned and left. And I was like, and as I explained to my judges there, I'm like, Well, yeah, but you got to tell me why you feel, right? I'm not going to grant a contest based on your feelings. Okay, you got to tell me why they are the same thing, right? Because we determined that it wasn't the same thing, right? So that why is the crux of your contest, all right? Don't leave the judge's table without having specified and made clear what the why is. Now, if you've gone over it 3 and you're on your 4th time, we may jump in and say, okay, we got it, okay, right? Because it's you're not going to wear the judges down by simply repeating the same thing over and over again. So, this formula speaks to facts and not feelings. And as I said before, if you're nervous, then it's a structure that you've practiced repeatedly. Let me jump to page 41, because here we talk about contesting within a tournament format. I do want to be cognizant of the time here. How much time, Brother Ben, were we? I didn't look at my... All right, sure. And let me take 5, and then we'll open it up for any questions, okay? So I'm not going to read everything verbatim here, because you could do that. Beginning on page 41, it talks about contests and how to use those contests in a strategic fashion. I understand that some teams may use contests as sort of a brief timeout, right? And that's certainly within your prerogative to do so. Some teams are structured so that if one quizzer is getting rattled or going off the rails, they've got another quizzer, right, who is to the left of them, who can call a contest and speak with them, and that person then go back to the coach, right? Because as a coach, right, sometimes you recognize that your quizzer's going off the rails, but it's not strategically a good time to necessarily call a timeout, right? If they've got 4 errors by question 9, but you don't really want to spend timeouts early in a quiz, right? It may be that a contest is in order and get that person back to you. So there are different strategies like that to use them. But, of course, you've only got a limited number of withdrawns and denieds as well. Let me just, again, for the sake of time, I don't want to read everything. All right. Well, maybe I can refer this in the questions, but let me just say one extra thing. This will seem very profound, I'm sure, okay? But the reason that most contests are denied is because they're brought to the judge's table. I would say 50 or 60% of the contests that are brought down really shouldn't have been brought down, right? And we've already covered those bases. Now, I can't speak to every quiz master and every district quiz coordinator and that sort of thing, but I try to be proactive and address points and correct questions and, get ahead of the game so that when you come down, or we've already deliberated before, it is very rare that there's words of revelation spoken. So you need to sort of weigh, they've deliberated for 5 or 6 minutes already, and there seems to be consensus. Am I just spinning my tires, to go down there and get a contest denied? It's got to be something really, really rock solid in those instances. And to simply come down, as I said, probably 9.5 times out of 10, let me do that happen. We've already covered it. And we will be gracious and, of course, listen to your contest. We will allow you enough time to get back up and take your seat before denying it. But we've done our due diligence already. So, as I said, you want to save those for times when you think you may really need it. All right. Okay? And, again, I was a quizzer who contested a lot. There were some quiz masters I knew I could try to slip one past. Other quiz masters I couldn't. All right? So take what I say today and massage it to your specific case in your district or at tournaments in which you go. But I'm just sort of sharing things from my perspective. Any questions? Any questions? A few more minutes here. Yes? In a matter of speaking, yes. Yes, as a quiz official, I want to keep things moving on and don't waste my time, all right? But I'm sorry to be frank. I'm just being transparent with you guys, okay? But at the same time, if you can practice that on a district level, perhaps, where time is not as much of a factor, or certainly at your practices, weekly practices, I already said, have your quizzers articulate that. Don't just explain it to them. Have them articulate it to you, right? And then you can sort of tweak it and say, oh, this would be better, this would be. There may be a place for that, yeah. Yes, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah. That's true. Yeah, yeah. I would still, I don't think as a coach that I ever sent a quizzer down knowing, well, this is going to be denied, but I'm going to send him anyway. There may be certain things, and we cover this in the book, there may be certain things that are communicated simply enough that I could send my quizzers down, and let me speak as a junior quiz coach. You know, I will even send junior quizzers down because they can be communicated simply enough. If something is complicated enough, then I may well be taking it down to the judges to walk them through this. So, does that answer your question? Yeah. Right. Any other questions? Yes, at the back there. I'm sorry? Oh, name of the book, the resource, is Building a Successful Bible Quiz Ministry. Yes. It's available on senioribiblequizzing.com. I think it's also maybe available for download on the Facebook page. I know it was posted for a while, pinned for a while there. It may still be there. All right. It's a great resource, about 50 pages or so, wide margins, so you can take notes and highlight. And we've written it with coaches in mind, definitely. All right. Let me just say one more thing. In terms of having your quizzers bring contests down. And we addressed this, but coaches, you are the deciding factor, right? Your quizzers, because I don't want to say every time, but almost every time I stood and contested, I felt I was right and that I was going to go down to the table and get this granted, right? It didn't happen like that. But coaches, every time your quizzers stand up, they want it because they are so vested. They want that wrong answer they just gave reversed, and they're they've got an emotional perspective there. And it's not, it's up to you to bring balance to that. So if you let your quizzer steamroll you, that's not good. All right? You need to be the deciding factor whether this is, you can say, all right, talk it through, let's spend this time rehearsing. But I have seen quizzers almost get into arguments with their coaches. That's not good. All right? The coach is the authority, and quizzers, it's not up to you to try to steamroll them. Right? And I've even seen, I see a lot more experienced quizzing, obviously, as the experienced quizmaster, and we've got some very intelligent young men and women. And sometimes intelligent men and women think that they know more than even their coaches. Right? It's a very thin ice that you're on there, right? To try to push beyond their authority despite that, okay? All right. Everybody understand what I'm saying there? Okay. Any other questions real quickly before we turn it back to Brother Ben? Yes, over here. I personally would not write quiz questions, or will not this year write questions citing Paul within Hebrews. Yeah. I think for what it's worth, and we could go on down, chase a rabbit here, but I think it's, the content is Pauline. I don't know that Paul was the actual author. I think somebody has collected his thoughts, and I mean, if you look at, that's one of the reasons that we put Galatians and Hebrews together, because much of the doctrine is, but it's definitely got a different tone and style to it. So I think the content is Pauline. I don't know that the writer is. I don't know that anybody has the answer to that. Yeah. So I won't write questions of that nature. Yeah. Any other questions? I know we've got to get to the quizzing. Pass the matrix here, and okay. I'll be here all weekend, so if you've got questions that do come up, I'll try to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Faubert.